Live briefing for Thursday, the 6th of July. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Firefox has released a new version, so Firefox 115 update addresses some high severity vulnerabilities, so a strong recommendation to update Firefox. And just a reminder also that if you are using any of the modern browsers, when there are updates available, you mostly have to actually quit the browser and restart it again in order for the updates to take properly. That's the same for Chrome. Pretty certain it's the same for Firefox. So just periodically, rather than walking away from your computer and leaving the screen locked, obviously, but yeah, just close down the browser and reopen it so that the patches get properly installed. There are 3 critical remote code execution bugs threatening industrial solar panels. So we're talking not here so much about the ones that you put on the roof in order to reduce your electric bill. We're talking about the ones that take up whole fields and are an attempt to supplement the power grid. So there's let me just check SolarView series software developed by a manufacturer called Contec. There are 3 vulnerabilities, one of which is quite significant. So if you are using or owner of or work for an organization that's using those, I definitely recommend that you check that the versions of the software have been updated. Version 8 fixes these particular issues. It is only, the vulnerability is really only significant for internet-facing systems, but given where these systems are located, they are quite often attached to their networks via the internet. And bearing in mind that all 3 of these vulnerabilities have got CVSS scores of 9.8 out of 10, it is definitely something that should be taken seriously. At worst, the vulnerabilities, if exploited, could lead to disruption on the grid. So that, as in, cause power cuts, I'm guessing. So not something to be sneezed at. Equally, not something that's going to be affecting a great deal of many of us, but it's worth being aware of it, worth being aware that it's out there. Microsoft Teams exploit tool is available on GitHub. So there is now a tool which has been dubbed Teams Fisher, which can be used. I think it was originally designed to be used for internal teams to test the security of internal teams, to test the security of teams. You know what I'm trying to say. It can deliver payloads effectively. This malware can deliver payloads directly to the users without having to rely on traditional phishing or social engineering scams to get it there. It works by basically enumerating whether a user can or can't receive files by Teams, and if they can, sends stuff through to them. So it's a relatively clever piece of malware. It incorporates various attack techniques, which you can read about in the article that we'll link to this. Right now, the recommendation is, if you don't use Teams for communications, don't start using Teams for communications, which, having used Teams, I really don't know why anybody would want to use it anyway. That's going to get me that's going to get me trolled. No, I'm not a fan of Teams. Too difficult to use anyway. But yep, so there is widely available how do you call it? Is it malware or is it testing software? Whatever it is, it can deliver malicious files to targeted Team users. So be aware if you're using Teams that this stuff is out there, and have a think about how you're going to prevent it. And then finally from me, one of my relatively recent rants was about uh, the well-intentioned but ultimately hopeless, if not damaging, online safety bill in the UK. There have been some interesting surveys of the general public to see what the general public feels about these things. And I have to admit, I think the general public has yet again got way more sense than the politicians that are involved in this stuff. 70% of people surveyed think that criminals will simply move from legitimate apps to non-regulated apps. After the online safety bill is implemented. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Of course they will. That one, I think the other 30% probably don't quite understand either how the criminal mind works or the availability of unregulated software that will just take itself outside of the bill regardless. 44% believe it will make the UK more vulnerable to cyber attacks from nation states, and 43% believe that it will make UK citizens more vulnerable to cyber attacks from criminals. And I think, again, if we're talking about, this was a survey of like, not a survey of people in tech, this was a survey of the general public. I think majority of the general public don't really understand what this is, what this bill is actually intending to do. It's basically, the bill is talking about mass monitoring of online conversations. So it's not talking about targeted surveillance of known or suspected criminals. It's talking about letting the government and governmental authorities or whatever read everything that you post in any of your chats. Now that's, I think, particularly scary. I mean, there are actually some countries that have tried this already, and with, from the government's perspective, great success. China, Russia, and North Korea, I think, are three perfect examples of places where the government and the authorities take a very detailed view of what everybody does. I think there are two big problems with the online safety bill. If it goes through like it is, it does mean that everything then becomes available, and not just to the law enforcement. I mean, we can come on to that in a minute, but the fact that it's been collected, or it can be collected, means it will be by criminals, and it certainly will be by government-sponsored groups, APTs and whatever, because the facility is there. And if anybody believes that that a government-backed system, a government-supported system, is going to be able to protect your data from the wrong people whilst giving it to the right people, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. It will make this stuff, it will be such a target for criminals and for state actors and threat groups. And the other side of it is, our own law enforcement in the UK at the moment are really struggling with understanding what their job is, what their role is. During the pandemic, apparently it was more important to fine people for having a cup of tea on a park bench than it was to deal with burglaries. So We have had people in the UK who have been questioned by the police about their thinking. So, do you really want the police to be able to look at every message that you've ever sent, and with their interpretation about whether it does or doesn't constitute I don't know, what's that wonderful thing they do at the moment? Not a non-crime hate incident, as in you've said something that somebody has taken offence to, or somebody has decided to say that they've taken offence about something just in order to get at you, and the police. Do you really want them to be able to read all your messages? I really think this is an exceptionally bad idea. And I think that the original stated aim of protecting vulnerable groups, children, victims of assault, whatever it is, there's just the whole piece, all the criminality side of it, attacking, for being able to attack that. Well, this won't do anything significant in the long run to address that. It will potentially, for a very short period of time, be disruptive, whilst the criminal and whatever networks just move to software that isn't covered by this stuff, which they will, and which is perfectly possible to do. You can write your own. You can write your own in Python if you wanted to. So yeah, general public knows this is a really stupid idea. Politicians seem to have completely and totally lost the plot over this. Yes, they should be protecting vulnerable groups. Yes, they should be targeting criminals. No, they shouldn't be doing that by implementing mass surveillance, unless we particularly want to go into totalitarian regimes, as we've seen. I suppose we could look back and say, well, the last really bad totalitarian regimes were in the previous century, so why don't we have another go now? Well, no, just go and look at how they behaved, and look at how the countries behave even now, where they have the opportunity to do this stuff. Very scary indeed. So that is my rant. If you get the opportunity to tell your MP how stupid you think the online safety bill is, I would strongly recommend that you do it. Do expect, though, of course, then to be put on a government blacklist of people who don't agree with the government, and monitor your every move from then onwards. And on that cheery note, I'm going to stop ranting. So have a great day. I hope that things go well for you today, and tomorrow is Friday, which is always a good thing. So have a great day.